Hey everyone, this is DJ Galici Kid, and you're tuned into RGV Community Health Hour on Vaquero Radio, the Valley Student Station. On today's show, I have a returning guest, Joshua Moroles. Thank you, Josh, for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back, man. It's important what we talk about.
Yeah, no doubt. So just a little bit about Joshua. He's an author, documentary filmmaker, marketer. You know, you wear many hats. I don't know.
Many hats, yes.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
No, I just think the most important thing that we're going to discuss today is pollution. Air pollution, water pollution, all the stuff that people really don't talk about, which it kind of boggles my mind. But I've been digging into your research too, man. So it's cool. I'm interested in having a good conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and as always, appreciate you being here. But just real quick, the views expressed on RGV Community Health Hour are for informational purposes only and do not constitute medical advice. Be sure to consult your primary care provider for all your healthcare needs. All right, so with our disclaimers by now, we can get into the conversation. So
let me also preface this too. I'm not a chemical engineer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not any of that stuff. So I'm just a person that puts things together.
Yeah, of course. You know, you always post about that online in many of your posts, you know, just telling people like, hey, I'm just out here doing the grunt work of digging in and trying to figure things out. So
for sure.
Yeah, so I just wanted to see if there's anything you want to start off with in terms of the last time you were here. You know, we did have a great conversation about all the kind of nightmares that are outside of, you know, the walls and in terms of the environment, and I guess even inside the walls a lot of times too, you know, the water that we drink, as we mentioned. Yeah, so I know since you were last on that you've at a minimum been on a panel for was that for a water?
Yeah, it was a water panel with water experts, which is very intimidating. It's like coming from just like researching it like crazy and then being invited up with a panel of water experts. I think it kind of shows you the lack of transparency, I would say, because with the things I talk about, nobody's talking about.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about it at scale. So if you hear something from your municipalities or the people that are in charge of the waterways, they're not giving you the full information. And I've clearly found this out from like our own EPA and all these people that do their own surveys or they do their own tests and stuff like that. They're doing them in-house, and sometimes the information isn't full, I would say. So it's important, and I found this just recently out too when I was in Corpus Christi a couple of weeks ago. Since we're getting the oil refineries here in South Padre Island over there at Boca Chica on Highway 48, I kind of wanted to explore what industry brings when it comes down to a region. And Corpus Christi is a perfect case study because it's been there for a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a lot of people who are willing to talk about it. And their water crisis is is tremendous.
Yeah,
like what's going on over there. So we're next. So I'm excited to dive into that more.
Yeah, I mean, and so did you just reach out to people from Corpus Christi and make the trip over there for that reason, or were you over there for something else?
No, specifically for that reason. A few weeks ago, I went to go film for a client out at South Padre Island, and I decided to stop by Highway 48, where all the RG LNG plant is. The new oil refinery is going to go. That port is just being bombarded with industry. And when I was there, I bought a portable air quality measure.
Oh, wow.
And I took it out there, and it spiked up to 139 in one of the regions. And I was like,
wow.
Oh, this is completely unhealthy. And also some people pointed out that there was a sandstorm going on. So fine.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. That's part of it. But also keep in mind that the people that are there, they're working in these conditions too. And wind pushes out into the city.
Yeah.
So I got called every single name in the book from people. You're an idiot, blank, blank, blank. And I think it's because of what industry brings to an area. They bring a lot of money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we go back to Corpus, one of the case studies I found out there is that if you live right on Refinery Row, these neighborhoods that are next to it, you have a 15-year life, you live 15 years less than you do right outside of that. So that's just, it goes to show you that industry, yes, it's fine, it's amazing, it can bring all this economic development, but also I think it's irresponsible when our city leaders don't talk about the environment, which, guess what? The people live in the environment that are
Yeah.
gonna work in the areas. And this is a direct quote from Judge Cortez, a Hidalgo County judge. He said that we live in a region where people simply cannot, they cannot reach their full potential.
Mm.
Why? Because they're sick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're bringing industry down to a region, and if people can't reach their full potential, I mean, it seems like it's counterintuitive.
Yeah, and I mean, and I feel that a lot, you know, especially for down here in the valley. You know, I wasn't born or raised here. You know, I'm from Freer, Texas, small town between Corpus and Laredo. But I know that historically this is a huge agricultural area, and now it's kind of transitioning away from that for the most part. And I feel like it's a perfect storm of just, you know, obviously these industries come and they provide a lot of opportunity. Like I just saw RGV announced that there was a car manufacturer that,
Vallejo.
yeah, there
Yeah.
you go, yeah, that they're gonna open a plant down here. And, you know, these opportunities provide jobs for people. They are economic kind of, I wouldn't say a boom, but they provide economic benefit for the region. And because this place was so historically marginalized and just so focused on agriculture, they're kind of just accepting industry with arms wide open, you know, and really don't think too much about, like you said, the environment. Because I mean, a lot of times the people making these decisions are business people,
For sure.
Political science, you know, background and stuff like that. They don't really have that science understanding of like, hey, whenever these things come, they could pollute our waterways and our air and things like that. So
Yeah, we're in a growth at all cost mentality in the Rio Grande Valley. You can see it from Edinburgh, McAllen, Mission. Stark County is getting tons of stuff going on over there. They're setting up their whole electric grid over there. I drove over there the other day for my dementia documentary that I'm working on, and the growth over there is tremendous. And then you drive through the entire Rio Grande Valley all the way to Cameron County, all the way out to the island. So much stuff is being built. So we are in a growth at all cost mentality. You would think that we would be taking care of the one or the couple of things that we need to make sure that we have quality of life, which is water and air.
Yeah, I mean, and at the same time, you know, I don't want to say that it's completely on the local politicians and the industries. Of course, the industries are going to do what they want. They don't really care too much at the end of the day in terms of their impact to a region, in terms of the environmental impact. But as far as I'm aware, it should be like on, what is it, the TCEQ, the, you know, Texas Commission for Environmental Quality, that should be able to, I don't know, like slap some wrists or, you know, let people know like, hey, you can build here, but you got to take these things into consideration.
I think they probably do have those conversations, but they do it anyways.
Yeah.
Because you think about this: if SpaceX were dumping a bunch of stuff, chemicals into the waterway, and they get slapped with a $1.5 million to $2 million fine.
Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, it's like a minute of their work.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I mean,
there's no incentive to be, you know, on the up and up in terms of that stuff. And I know that, you know, they're building a large subdivision. You know, I live in North McAllen, and they're building subdivisions all over that area where it's, you know, where it used to be farmland. And I'm just wondering, you know, because these forever chemicals, like the old insecticides and fertilizers, they were pretty terrible compounds that, you know, that the US eventually banned. And those things kind of stay buried in the dirt, right? And as the years go by, they get more and more buried. But now they're building these subdivisions and they're kicking up all that dirt. And I'm always wondering, like, man, I wonder what that dirt has in it. Because, you know, just being a scientist, I'm really like, it drives me crazy. I want to be able to take it to the lab and analyze it and figure out what's going on in there.
I mean, if you think about that every time they build a new subdivision anywhere across the Rio Grande Valley, that has happened.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you think about that, they're kicking up all this dirt, and then just assume that we have a flooding event, and that stuff gets carried to the next place. So, for example, from Mission all the way out to Rio Hondo, there's a 1 foot in elevation drop for every mile. So that means everything that happens over here goes out to the Gulf eventually. And that's why there's regions of Cameron County and Harlingen and Brownsville that get flooded all the time. Like there's a 20% chance every single year that certain parts of Harlingen are going to flood.
Wow,
So
20%, damn.
20%, 1 in 5.
Yeah, that's a huge
So-
roll of the dice.
Yeah, think about that for a second. Like all the chemicals that are kicked up, even from the Arroyo Colorado, when it floods too, all those chemicals go into 83,000 homes and 200 facilities across the Rio Grande Valley.
Wow.
So you think about that, if they're going into homes and businesses, and then these homes and businesses clean up and they sanitize,
Mhm.
or maybe they don't and just let it go, now they're breathing in the mold.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's just people are unaware
Mhm.
of what's really going on and what they can do. Because even if you talk to the people whose homes have been flooded before, they haven't been flooded once. They've been flooded 3-4 times. So they've been living in those conditions ever since.
Yeah, and I think because they're always supposed to do like the floodplain assessment whenever they're building something, but I feel like a lot of this area is just probably prone to flooding,
Yeah.
whether they say it is or not.
Yeah, I saw the Texas floodplain, I forget what it was, the report, and it pretty much shows the entire Rio Grande Valley is in the floodplain.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, the entire Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot to deal with, and that's what makes it so hard to, I think, it's voices like yours and the stuff you put out, and then of course there's I just learned about them recently, the South Texas Environmental Justice Coalition or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's organizations like that are really going to be the leaders that help kind of start to create change, right? Because if, unfortunately change doesn't happen overnight, and
Right.
it takes, a domino effect of, people like you all putting information out, trying to educate the population about what's going on. And hopefully, that there's enough, I would say, people who care, because I feel like based on your post, I don't spend a lot of time on
Yeah.
social media, but every time I come across your post, the comments just kind of,
Yeah.
they kill me inside a little bit.
It's a no pasa nada mentality.
Yeah.
But you're right, dude. It is going to be the younger demographic, because there's a kid now that started going to the Harlingen commissioners meetings, speaking up against data centers. And you had never seen that before, like a young kid
Mhm.
going up, right? And he's talking about these things. But I had a conversation with him before. I was like, he was with his girlfriend, and I was like, dude, you all are the ones that are gonna be living in this.
Yeah.
You all are gonna have kids one day.
Mhm.
So I'm already thinking about moving out of here in the next part of my life.
Mhm.
But you guys are the ones that are gonna be stuck in this because of the decisions that we make. You are gonna inherit everything.
Yeah.
So you all need to have the voice, and I feel like it's him, and that's it. We had a data center protest. Guess how many people showed up?
10?
2.
Oh, wow.
So if you think about that, and I have a hard time with this because I'm thinking, like, why aren't people showing up? Do they not care?
Mhm.
And I think it's just because they're passively taking responsibility. Like if I have a petition, I have 2 different petitions. One of them is against data centers. The other one's against how it shows how the Rio Grande Valley is having human rights violated with all the stuff that's going on.
Mhm.
Both of those have over 5,000 signatures.
Nice.
So passively, they're participating, but it's not
Mhm.
enough.
Yeah.
They literally have to go to the commissioners' meetings and voice their concerns, because those people, the ones that are elected, are the ones that are crafting these decisions, making these decisions based off of their community input. And if the community doesn't give input, they're gonna think, okay, well, I'm making the right decision.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go forward. Data center approved.
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of the same problem that they talk about in terms of doing, like studies, like scientific studies, where they're trying to recruit people to come. Cause, for things like that, obviously it's a lot different, right? You're asking people to come to a study, whether they're going to do some kind of survey or go through some kind of scientific test of some
Yeah.
sort, or maybe take some kind of pill, or, things like that. But they say that it's really mostly Caucasian women that go to these types of studies, because the Mexican Americans and the Black people and the various races of other people are out working and having to survive versus
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get it too. I just think I struggle with that too, is because I understand that people don't have time to read through 56 pages of
Mhm.
documents documents or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's why I try to push out the content I do, because it's short, it's easily digestible, and it's the way I understand it, which is like in bullet points, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, that only goes so far. Like my reach, I'm reaching millions of people every single month.
Mm-hmm.
Is it making a move? Is it making a dent? Maybe people are starting to open their eyes about the water quality is bad, the air quality is bad. They're taking measures to get filters or something like that. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Maybe they get a Brita filter system and they think it's going to work for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
I mean, the things go out, right? So it's like, it's a constant educational and informational type of thing. And I think a lot of people get tired of me talking about the issues, but I am from the valley. Like I understand the valley mentality. If you don't push it into somebody's head 1,000 times, they're like, okay, it's done. Like the water quality is good now.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's never going to be good here.
Yeah, it's gonna be a never-ending battle, and it's gonna take a lot to I mean, and like you always post about the Superfund sites and the underground plumes of terrible, you know.
I don't even think people realize that those are here. Like people are working and living over like the McAllen groundwater plume. Like that is, it was so devastating. UTRGV has over 600 hours of video documentation on that.
Wow.
Like that's how
crazy.
grand this thing was, and there's still 17 out of the 83 wells that have high levels of benzene in them. So, I mean, just think about this stuff. Like, people are living and breathing and working on top of that, and they have no idea. And people are still fishing out of the Donna Lake to this day. It's like, and the problem with this, too, is like, the systems that we use are very antiquated. Like, for a consumer confidence report, it measures the water that was it measures the water from the year prior. So last year, so let's just say example for today, if our water was compromised today, we won't find out till summer next year. So that's a huge problem. The air quality readings that I've been getting are also from the year prior. So like, what good is that?
Yeah.
Like we live in a technology age where we can use blockchain or something that can track it
everything
on a website.
Yeah, instantaneous data, sharing and transmission.
And it's really, I would say it's not really that expensive, but for like an individual like me, I was researching if we get 15 air monitors in Cameron County, it'll cost about $15,000 up front, and then about $2,000 to $3,000 for ongoing maintenance and pushing the website.
And that's for all the monitors?
For 15 monitors.
So like $1,000 the monitor, more or less. Yeah.
So it's doable for an entity, but for an individual to have independence, I mean, I would love to be able to get all that information, but at the same time, is it worth it? Is it, if I take this to the city commission, hey, look, I've been tracking your air for a year, your air quality is shit. I mean, are they gonna care?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times there's nothing at that level too that they can do, you can't really do much about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, I wanted to, because of all the commuting that I do from McAllen to Brownsville, I wanted to, because I have a friend who works for TCEQ, and he's part of the air quality team. So they have a van that's outfitted with all kinds of really cool things to monitor the air, where they can go in real time, park their van somewhere and see with the mass spectrometer what's in the air. So I went on eBay and I was looking at mobile mass spectrometers, because I was like, man, I commute so much, I would just love to have the data of the air quality from all the driving that I do. But yeah, it's like thousands and thousands of dollars, and those mass specs, they're real finicky in terms of, like my buddy says, even theirs, because they have all, the state funds to buy the stuff and have the equipment and repair it. He says that theirs, goes down on pretty regularly, and it's the same in our lab, right? The ones in our lab, the mass spectrometers, they just sit there and they go down pretty regularly. So that, the vibrations and all the other things you gotta take into account from traveling would definitely make it kind of a pain for someone on an individual level to do it, unless you had Elon Musk money. We need Elon Musk to put some.
I mean, even if you think about that, is that $15,000 isn't that much to be able to get 15 monitors and get that information, because that information is valuable. But then what do you do with the information? Does it even care? So even the water quality, I was gonna buy this $6,000 machine that tests the water, and it gives you all the stuff that the consumer confidence reports gives you, but again, I was like, well, I gotta go out and get water from every single city, and then report it once a year.
And then it's just a snippet in time, it went from 1 week to the next. The
Could
water,
change.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's like, is it worth it? Probably not.
yeah.
So it's like those questions I struggle with, like, because it's out there, but
And that's why it's up to the governments, you know, the local and state, and of course the federal, which, you know, isn't too caring these days about, you know, EPA and the environment, but yeah, that's why it's up to the governments to use our taxpayer money, you know, to do these types of things and try to take care of the population, but yeah, it's, you know, it's, like I said, it's just such a shame because, like I just mentioned with Elon Musk type money, like, man, I don't know if you remember, maybe it was over a year ago, he said that he would solve world hunger. Like, he would just put billions of dollars up to end world hunger if they could make it so transparent that he could see where all the money's going.
right.
And they were like, well, you know, coming up with excuses or whatever the case is. And he's like, well, you know, I have all the money in the world to end world hunger, but if you're not gonna let me look behind the curtain and see where it goes, and you know,
Doge does not exist
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, the I guess bipolarness of him, right? Like wanting to end food stamps and benefits for lower income people, but he wants to end world hunger. So.
Yeah, our political region is completely bipolar.
Yeah. All right, everyone, we're gonna take a quick music break and we'll be right back, so stay tuned. Thanks. All right, everyone, and we're back. So thanks for staying tuned in. All right, Joshua, do you want to talk a little bit about the documentary you're working on?
Sure.
The dementia one?
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing we study dementias, ADRD, Alzheimer's disease, and related dementias in our department. And Dr. Maestre is also part of our department.
Awesome, I interviewed her.
Yeah.
She's very gracious and very, she's very gracious with my ignorance.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how often she teaches classes anymore for our department, but I was lucky enough. That's how I, you know, was introduced to her, because as part of the first cohort in the human genetics program, she taught our class. I don't know if it was the fall semester when we first started, or maybe the following spring semester, but she taught a class, you know, about Alzheimer's and her research to us, and it was really fascinating. And I've been trying to get her on the show for years now, and she's actually, I'm having someone from her team on the show as the last episode.
Who is it?
Dr. It starts with an M.
Did I interview that person? Because I got the chance to go out there to Harlingen, right? Is it Harlingen for the UTRGV one?
Yeah, yeah.
And I had set up, I thought I was going to interview her only, but she had like 6 or 7 different doctors. I was like, yes,
wow, that's
gold
awesome.
mine. So,
yeah, seriously.
yeah, so that documentary is interesting because the only reason I got interested in it, because one of my good buddies, Noe, his mom has dementia, Alzheimer's. And I saw the way that it was physically and emotionally messing with him and his wife, like physically and emotionally.
Yeah, like as caretakers.
Caretakers. And I was like, oh man, I wonder how many other people are going through this. And I posted something about it, and there was so much feedback on it. And then somebody else posted about it, and they got a bunch of feedback on it. And I was like, let me research it a little bit more. And that's when I found Stark County Fado Healthcare. And they're one of the only few people that actually researches dementia and Alzheimer's out there. And in Stark County, if people don't know this, there's 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 that suffer from dementia.
Wow.
And it's slowly starting to bleed over here into the Rio Grande Valley, where 1 in 5 will eventually have dementia and Alzheimer's. So the most common type was vascular dementia, which means you're simply not getting enough oxygen to your brain. And it ties to pollution and contamination. So the air you're breathing, like just if you think about that for a second, like now we're not only talking about the water problem, we're talking about the air. And then through my research, I found that right over in Mexico, right there in Reynosa, right across the border from McAllen, not very far from here, there's 150 different manufacturers. And I've been tracking the air quality since January this year, 2026. And I always see a bad air quality bubble over McAllen and surrounding cities.
Yeah, it's always really bad.
Always right there.
Yeah, it's really
always there. It's weird.
Yeah, it is very weird.
And then I saw that the obviously air pollution has no boundaries, no borders. So if there's 150 manufacturing plants right across the border in Reynosa, chances are some of that air toxins are coming over here.
Yeah, no doubt.
And not only that, it's like think about now SpaceX and the LNG plants over there. So now we're going to be cornered with different air pollution. So that kind of got me just diving deeper into it. And then obviously there's the health disparities that the Rio Grande Valley has that also contributes to dementia and Alzheimer's. So it's just a super interesting topic because it doesn't affect the person only that has dementia and Alzheimer's. It affects the caretakers deeply.
Yeah, and I think it might be, I'd like to connect you with, I don't know how much value, I don't want to use that word, it's kind of a dirty word to talk about people in terms of their value, but
contribution.
Yeah, that's a better word, contribution. How much you can contribute to your documentary. I interviewed her this semester pretty early on. She's doing her PhD in clinical psychology, I want to say, but her project is involving getting into, how can I put this? Basically, like the mental health of caretakers who are dealing with dementia patients.
Interesting. Who is it?
Her name is Denise Gadiaga.
Okay.
And yes, like I said, I'll connect you with her. And you know, of course.
Yeah, because I'm missing that aspect. That it shows what the caretakers go through, but it doesn't explain what they go through.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that would be an interesting angle to get on there.
Yeah, no, it was great having her on. You know, she talked about, of course, a little bit about her background and her education and kind of why she chose it. She did the PhD in clinical psychology to focus on Alzheimer's and things like that, and especially for the caretakers because she saw firsthand because of family, you know, how it impacted
That's such
family.
a devastating disease because my documentary is called The Long Goodbye, and actually Dr. Maestre pointed out to me that she did not like the title of my documentary, but the reason I titled it that, she says it's a new beginning. I disagree. I'm not going to disagree with, obviously, the main person that talks about dementia and Alzheimer's. But if you think about this, the long goodbye is because that person is no longer themselves at a certain point. Like they don't, it's not, simply is not them anymore.
Yeah.
So they're a shell of
who they were.
Mm-hmm. The person's not even in there anymore. It looks like them, which you can struggle and physically see, well, that's my mom. Like it looks like her, it talks like her.
Yeah.
But that person's no longer in there. Mm-hmm. So I titled it The Long Goodbye because it's a degenerative disease. Mm-hmm. And at some point that person's no longer there. So if they do survive for 15 to 20 years, you're slowly saying goodbye to them every single year.
Yeah.
So that was the premise behind the long goodbye.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to disagree with the main boss, but
yeah, no, you know, she is a world expert in the field for sure. But it's okay, you know, that's what makes science beautiful, you know, is being able to push back, even if you're not a scientist, you know, because nobody can know everything, you know, and of course, you know, it is her wheelhouse, but, you know, these conversations are what makes it important so that way they can, you know, see a perspective from a non-scientist and the way they were thinking about it whenever they were, you know, discussing, you know.
That's why I said she's very gracious with my ignorance, because obviously I don't know everything, right? Yeah. But I do want to connect the stuff that's going on in the Rio Grande Valley back to the question I always had, is like, why are there so many sick people in the Rio Grande Valley? Mm-hmm. We have high rates of respiratory illness, high cardiovascular disease, diabetes. We're one of the most obese cities in the nation, dropped down to number 2, but I mean.
Oh yeah, I saw that recently. Yeah. It was by fractions of a point.
Yeah, by fractions, like, guys, don't celebrate.
Yeah.
But yeah, you think about those things, like, it's just, it goes back to the people, like, maybe. And I don't even want to say that people are ignorant, because if you tell them that they're ignorant, they get super offended. I'm ignorant.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand everything, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's okay if you don't understand everything. I'm okay looking like a fool saying something that might be completely off, but then get corrected and then use that information going forward. I think a lot of people are not willing to be wrong.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the downsides to, I think, you know, our pride kind of takes a hit, you know, whenever you're wrong. But I mean, I have a book and it's called Born to Fail, and I knew I wanted failure in the title of the book, because I mean, we all fail, and that's how we learn and that's how we grow. So I knew I wanted failure in the title of the book, and it wasn't until I read David Goggins' book, and I think it's like not even in the first chapter, I think it's like in the introduction. One of the last things he says is, we are all born to fail. Yeah. And I was like, boom, there it is. That's, you know, I knew I wanted failure in some way or another for the title of my book, but I was like, oh, man, that's perfect. We're born to fail, and it's
The faster you fail, the faster you know how not to do it.
yeah,
You
yeah,
move
exactly.
forward. I think most people live in their minds that they want to be perfectionists, and that's why they'll never do anything because everything has to be so perfect.
Yeah, and it's like the
Life
fear
is
of like,
messy, man.
you know, it's the paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
You know, you're afraid to just, you know, look like a fool, which is, you know, nothing wrong with that. You
Yeah.
know, we all say and do stupid things sometimes,
Yeah,
and that's
and I
okay.
would
That's
take
part
it-
of being human.
For sure. And I would take it to the next point is most people don't even care.
Mm.
So it's like, just do what you gotta do because the more time you take, it's just, you're just prolonging your agony, man. Just go for it because your time here is limited.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
and then with all the other pollution here, it might be even more limited.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I just got in contact with an old buddy of mine. We were like, he was definitely, you know, I think we were the best of friends in terms of, you know, our class, chemical engineering undergrads at Texas A&M Kingsville. I hadn't talked to him in like 6 or 7 years, so it was cool talking and catching up with him. But he was just talking about like, man, I can't wait to retire. I can't wait to retire. I've been working so much and this and that. And I'm like, why retire, man? Like you're only in your mid-30s and you're thinking about retirement. And it was so funny though, because I told him about all the stuff I'm trying to do and work on. He's like, and I'm trying to like motivate him, you know. And he's like, man, that's not me. Like he's like, man, I've always been the guy that does the bare minimum. He's like, you've always been the go-getter and and trying to do more and more. He's like, that ain't me, man. I'm just trying to do my 20, 25 years in industry and then retire, you know. But yeah, it's just kind of funny to reflect on in terms of, you know, knowing him for so long as a young man, you know, when I met him, and now I mean, he's still a young man, but as a professional chemical engineer now and years in industry.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially in like those type of industries, could probably get desensitized to a lot of the stuff that they're reading or they're looking at because if you think about it, like all these chemicals that are being released, they know about it, but they just keep on seeing it over and over and over again. So they might not think that this is actually affecting the population or something. So just looking at data all the time, which is a very interesting thought too, because I got called out by the McAllen Municipal man that leads pretty much the whole thing, saying that I was demeaning his employees with the stuff that I talk about as far as water quality. But I'm really not demeaning his employees. I'm talking about the systems that they have to use, because if you think about this, we get our water all the way from Colorado. By the time it reaches down here, everybody's dumping into that river system, and by the time it gets here, we only get about 15% of whatever's left. We literally get the leftovers. So they're doing a tremendous job at cleaning the water. But they're dealing with some pretty contaminated water. So that was my point, is what I'm trying to.
I mean, and ultimately, it's not like his employees have the power to, even if they wanted to change something. I mean, they're just employees, right? Like their hands are kind of tied. They just got to show up, push the button, and use the systems that are already there in place.
Right.
Of course, they can try to make recommendations, but
yeah, a lot of them are very smart. I've seen some of them have keep on doing they're upping their skills, so they're always taking new tests and stuff like that, which is in dire need, because obviously you need to know how to run a municipality, a water municipality. There's some municipalities in the Rio Grande Valley where they seem like they're not even being taken care of. So McAllen, yes, is the highest quality standards. But even then, you think about the stuff that comes through and goes through, it's like our systems are just being inundated with so much chemicals and pollution and toxins that it's almost impossible to take it all out. And then you add on top of that the chlorides that they have to use, the chlorine to pretty much clean the water. Those have been known to cause cancer. So if it raises up in a certain amount, and this is the way it was explained to me by a scientist, is that it's not going to be one cup of water that's going to give you this illness or disease, but it's the accumulation that happens over and over and over and over again throughout your lifetime that will eventually unlock that disease or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like we were talking about during the music break was, you know, our DNA repair systems, you know, all these exposures from the water and the air, and of course, you can think about it like radiation, right? Like just being out in the sun and getting sunburn or UV, you know, stuff like that. Like, you know, your skin has repair mechanisms to take care of itself. So if you get if you get sunburned once, like chances are, you know, you're not going to end up with skin cancer. But if you get sunburned multiple times a year for many years on end, like those DNA repair systems in your skin
just break down.
Yeah, they're going to break down, and eventually you're going to end up with some weird melanoma or weird skin cancer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just those accumulations of environmental hits that we take that break our bodies down and break our systems down. And another thing that I tell people is our age, like you mentioned, you were 44,
Right.
So our age, our chronological age really doesn't matter. And that was another point in the book I was telling you about during the break. Dr. David Sinclair talks about our chronological age really doesn't matter. The amount of times we go around the sun ultimately doesn't matter. It's our biological age that matters. So an easy example is people who are cigarette smokers.
Mm-hmm.
Cigarette smokers, they generally look older, and they are, even if they're young, but if they smoke a bunch of cigarettes, they're breaking their body down with those cigarettes, and that's why they generally look like they're older,
Right.
because they're aging in themselves faster than they should be, because biologically, they're breaking down those repair systems. So it's our
I've never heard it like that. Interesting.
Yeah, so it's our biological age that matters way more than our chronological age. So
Yeah.
that's why it's heartbreaking when you see young people that are very sick, not talking about like children or adolescents, but people in their mid to late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
If they like to drink, they like to smoke and things like that, and then they end up sick, and then they're like, oh man, I'm so young, what happened?
Right.
Well, it doesn't matter how many times you go around the sun. What matters was what you were taking in and how you were treating your body.
Right.
So yeah, that's what makes
Yeah, I talk about stressors a lot because I drank and I did drugs when I was in college, stuff like that, but I didn't do like copious amounts.
Yeah.
But also you think about the stressors that you're being conditioned to. So if you live in a colonia and you're in poverty here in the Rio Grande Valley, you have no choice because you can't afford bottled water. Now you're drinking water. You're
Yeah.
making your sopitas, your beans, all that stuff that you literally eat every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into your older age, and now maybe you're dabbling in drinking, smoking, stuff like that. So you're just breaking down your body even more.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the contaminants in the air are going into your body every single day, that's another stressor.
Yeah.
So you have work on that, right? So I'm super interested in your work, dude.
Yeah, so what I've been doing, and I'll be presenting this Friday at a symposium in Brownsville. It's the first annual symposium hosted by the Center for Genome Research. So our human genetics department in Brownsville got a grant. I want to say it was like a $10 million grant, to where some of that grant money funds work for the scientists to do,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of that grant money is to host lunch and learns for people to present their research, and also do things like what we're going to do on Friday in terms of having a symposium where anybody can come. It's free to come, you just got to sign up, and just learn about. But we're one of 6, I want to say, of centers for genome research in the U.S.
Wow.
So I know there's one in Hawaii, and that's about it. I don't know where the other ones are, but it's pretty rare. One of 6 in the whole country,
Right.
and it's in Brownsville.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's a really cool opportunity to be able to network and see research that's happening that's relevant to the valley. But
your research is super interesting because you do research on possums.
yeah,
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess in a nutshell, what I'm presenting is I've been using a component of air pollution called benzoapyrene, and its impact on organ development in the laboratory possum. So what makes the laboratory possum a unique animal model is that the dams are pregnant for 14 days, and then they give birth to the pups, and the pups attach to her teats. But the pups are born, like I said, after 14 days, and so they're born at the stage of a 6-week human embryo.
Interesting.
So they go through many major developmental changes outside the womb. And so it provides a unique opportunity to do experiments to those pups to see, it's essentially like being able to grab into a pregnant woman's stomach, pull the baby out, do an experiment to it, and put it back in. So it's an extra uterine model to where you can grab these, fetuses off the dam, expose them to something. And for me, it was air pollution. And for my classmate who's presenting on Friday, he tried to use the compound he's studying is called aflatoxin.
What's that?
It's a toxin made by mold, but it's in our food system. It's highly regulated by the federal government. And so he was trying to do experiments on the possums with this aflatoxin, but it's so toxic, the pups weren't surviving the injections.
Interesting.
And so I kind of lucked out that with my component of air pollution, that they were able to survive. And of course, I haven't done quite enough analysis on their brains to talk about their brain development, which was really the focus of my project. But their livers are really being destroyed by this air pollution, this air pollutant. And it's kind of crazy that, like, because they're not even breathing it in, they're just getting an injection, a subcutaneous injection under their skin of this air pollution, and it is kind of wreaking havoc on their whole system.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so that's what makes it kind of a unique animal model, because I grabbed them, I start the injections when they're 15 days old, so that's equivalent to a 16-week human fetus. And yeah, so they get injections for 7 days straight, and then at 29 days and 36 days, I'll euthanize them and collect them to get their brain, liver, spleen, and eyes. And then, yeah, and then we do histology to look at the cell, at the cellular level, just under a microscope, just look at how their cells are impacted.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, like, basically we're inducing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in these possums.
Really?
Yeah,
because of the pollutants.
Yeah, because of the air pollution. So, so it's kind of one of the theories our department had was like, hey, this air pollution, they know about it as well. That's why they came down here to study these environmental toxins.
That's interesting because there's a lot of people who have fatty livers that don't even drink alcohol.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
your work is suggesting that it's from air pollution.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, and at the same time, my classmate Marco with that aflatoxin, it's the same thing. It's very strongly correlated with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And so, of course, like I said, it's a little bit harder to really pinpoint because it's regulated by the government, the state government and the federal government. But I've talked to the woman who's in charge of the program. I don't know if she still is, this was years ago. But yeah, so it's like, I can't remember what it's like the aflatoxin monitoring project or whatever. And so I went to Houston to learn as much as I could about it for like a week one summer, and then I called her to find out more about the program. And she literally told me that Texas is the Wild West when it comes to the aflatoxin and making it safe. So what we do every year in Texas is they'll take their highly contaminated corn, like corn that's terrible that they wouldn't even probably feed to animals, because there are certain cutoffs, right? Like parts per billion.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. I think it's anything under 20 parts per billion is safe for human consumption. Anything from 20 to 300 parts per billion is safe to use for animal feed, and anything over that, like, you just got to get rid of it because it's not safe for anybody to consume. But she said what Texas does every year is that they take their highly contaminated corn and they mix it with their uncontaminated corn to kind of dilute it down. And it's like, oh man. And she says that Texas is the only state that does it every year. The only other time that other states do it is when it's a real bad drought year and they really have no other choice but to kind of, dilute it down that way.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's, a quote from her. She's like, man, Texas is the Wild West when it comes to this aflatoxin stuff.
Damn.
And I'm just like, and then, you got to consider, like, if people are going to farmers markets and getting corn from local small farmers, do the farmers even know about, like, this aflatoxin that they could be potentially having in their food product? And it's not just corn. I mean, it's corn, it's sorghum or the milo, it's peanuts and legumes. It's like basically any crop that you can grow, it can be exposed, and have this mold on it that's going to create this aflatoxin compound.
Wow.
Yeah. So
so go back to to the air quality. Like I said, I was in Highway 48 a couple weeks ago, and my air monitor spiked up to 139, and it's obviously measuring PM 2.5 and PM10. But then also those chemicals that you're talking about, they bind to those specific toxins in the air. So you're breathing them in, which is, like I said, I got called every single name in the book when I did that, because this guy's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, but I mean, if there's a sandstorm and it's picking up these PM 2.5 and PM10, the molecules get attached to that and you breathe it in your system. Yeah. So it's like...
Yeah, it's like for me, for example, that component of air pollution that I study, benzoate pyrene, we get exposed to it. So it's created by the incomplete combustion of organic material. So, car exhaust and factories and even just barbecuing, right? Because when you get that charred food, it's not burnt, right? It's incomplete combustion. So if you eat barbecue a lot, man, you're exposing yourself to quite a bit of
Interesting.
benzoate. But yeah, so that's the compound we ingest, but really it's the metabolized form.
People aren't gonna like it if we tell them not to barbecue, man.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna repeat this.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still eat barbecue too, you know, but eating it every day may not be the best for you.
Yeah, I'm the biggest Debbie Downer in the Rio Grande Valley. So you shouldn't drink your water. Don't go outside and smell the air. Now you can't barbecue, guys.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, it's benzoate that we ingest, but it's not until it gets metabolized in our liver that it transforms into a different compound. Benzoate 7,8-diol 9,10-epoxide, or BPDE, that is what binds to and damages DNA.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's why it's kind of a never-ending battle, like going down the rabbit hole. Like, you think it's this certain compound, which it is, but it's not until it gets metabolized in your body that really starts to create the havoc.
Interesting.
So yeah, we're gonna take another quick music break, everyone. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Josh, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's always, these hours always go so quick whenever, I have you on. And
tons of information.
Yeah, it's trying to cram in a bunch of stuff into a short amount of time. So if there's anything you want to share, well, first off, real quick, is there any timeline for the release of your dementia documentary? Like, how far along are you? Do you have a window of later this year, early next year kind of time frame when you plan on releasing it?
Yeah, I have 2 more interviews that I need to collect. Then after that, I'll start editing it down, and I should say maybe June, July, it'll be done, and then I'm gonna submit it to film festivals where it'll sit probably for the next half year.
Okay.
And then I'll release it to the public.
I would say so that's probably like a requirement of film festivals, I would imagine. It's like, hey, you can't release this anywhere else first. You got to submit it to us.
Yeah, it has to go through the process and all that stuff, get judged.
Yeah.
And then,
okay.
But it allows me to be able to show the documentary in private screenings throughout the Rio Grande Valley. So I feel like I've done this with all the documentaries I've had, and it works out good because you get to invite the community out that's really interested in the subject, and then you literally have conversations like we're having right now, because it's super powerful when you're in front of a person and having these conversations versus watching it on YouTube.
Yeah, of course.
So that's why I do it, and a lot of people kind of backlash at me because, well, if it's so important, why don't you just give it to the community? I know the community. I am the community. I take everything for granted. So I know they will too, man.
Yeah. So yeah, if there's anything else you want to share, any other projects you're working on?
Well, I do want to share that the issues that we're going through, like I mentioned earlier, I'm 44. So I'm thinking of the next stage in my life where I probably will move out of the valley, not because of the contamination, pollution, just I want to go to the next part of my life, right? But we're leaving behind an environment that the younger demographic that are barely going into high school right now, that are in elementary, that are eventually going to have children, be contributors of the Rio Grande Valley, pay taxes, all that stuff, help the Rio Grande Valley grow. They're going to inherit everything that we leave behind.
Yeah.
So they are the ones that need to show up in front of the commissioners' meetings and the county meetings, because just imagine an 18-year-old that's going up facing, and it's very intimidating getting in front of a commissioner because they're all looking at you, right?
Yeah.
But you have to muster up the courage to get in front of them to say that we don't want this coming to our community because it's going to affect me, it's going to affect my children that I'm going to have one day, and it's going to affect the entire region. But imagine how powerful it would be if a mom goes up with her child that's kind of already knows what's going on and then talks about what's going on in their environment, because it gives it a completely different perspective than it is a 44-year-old man that has already kids that are growing up. If it's a young kid that's talking about it, that takes on a whole different view. Yeah. So I encourage your listeners here to go out, because your voice really does matter. Like as much as we talked about, like I said, does it really matter? If it comes from your voice, it does matter, because you have to keep showing up over and over and over again. Because if you don't, they're gonna think that whatever they're deciding is, hey, nobody's complaining about it, we're good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
All right. So yeah, that's it, everyone, for today's show. Thanks for staying tuned in, and of course, thanks again for coming on. And man, I wish these shows were 2 to 3 hours long, because I mean, I'm sure we could talk all day about the kind of the chaos and you know, what needs to be done and ways to protect yourself. And, you know, it's a lot to deal with and it's a lot to think about, but, you know, it can be managed, you know, it can be changed, you know, it's like I just mentioned earlier, you know, it's just kind of a domino effect where we need to have enough of a push to start that kind of chain reaction where enough people do show up and enough people do care.
For sure.
And I think that with enough time, you know, and enough people getting sick, which is kind of already the case, you know, every year, you know, people get more and more sick seemingly. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before people get kind of fed up, especially with those medical bills piling on and seeing, like you said, you know, like the long goodbye, right?
That's the uncertainty
Yeah.
of life. Because even when you think about this, like some elected officials have gotten cancer, and now they're talking about it, but they're not talking about what causes it or what are the reasons why. They're just saying, I got through it, and you should go and get checked.
Yeah, yeah.
What good is that? Like,
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they think it's just a normal part of the human experience to get cancer. And I mean, it is if you're living to be 80 and you get cancer at 75, you know, but people shouldn't really be getting cancers in their 20s, you know. Not to say that it can't happen, right? Because St. Jude Children's Hospital is dedicated to children's cancer, you know, so it can happen, but it shouldn't be happening at the rates in terms of young, healthy people getting, you know, cancers that should be kind of, you know, onset later into later life. So yeah, thanks always, Joshua. I really appreciate your time and appreciate you being here. And thanks for everyone for staying tuned in. As always, this is DJ Kalicha Kid here to remind you to stay curious, stay healthy, and let's thrive together, RGV.